Welcome to the Get Sober with Nick podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss all things sober, the good, the bad and the ugly. And hopefully having these open and honest conversations with some amazing guests will help other people along their sobriety journey. And it might even inspire a few people to take the leap and can the booze on the head for good. So if you're already sober, thinking about becoming sober, or just want to change your relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Danielle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. Getting over a cold, but all good.
You don't look like it. You look good.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for making the journey down today. I know you've come from quite far away, so I really appreciate the effort for coming down. First of all, which I'm going to do, which I do with all my guests, I want to kind of jump in straight into some questions. And the first question I ask everyone is, what is your earliest memory of alcohol? And this can be growing up around it. It doesn't necessarily have to be drinking it. But could you tell us a little bit about your earliest memory?
Yeah, so my earliest memories, right, let me cast my mind back, probably when I'm like 3 or 4. And my memories of alcohol are mainly Christmas time, because I can kind of see all the bottles laid out for what people might want, you know, around to socialise and stuff in the house. My family weren't like massive drinkers per se, but definitely enjoyed the odd drink and stuff like that. But yeah, when I think back, I'm thinking like 80s, you know, you have a bit of Advocaat over here. You've got like sherry, you've got wine, whiskey, vodka, all the different drinks. And people generally just having a nice time, you know, just you know, all the adults seem to be quite jolly.
So it's kind of positive memories.
Yeah. There was no darkness around alcohol or anything around that time. Yeah.
What about your sort of first experience of drinking alcohol? Can you remember that?
Yes, I remember it because it was again Christmas, and I think I might have been, how old would I have been? Oh, I must have been about maybe 8 or 9.
Oh, wow.
No, just a sip of wine.
Yeah,
I think someone let me have a little sip of wine at the dinner table on Christmas, and you know, it was like, you know, I think I asked for it or something like that, and they were like, just a tiny little sip, and I tasted it and I was like did not like the taste at all, and it was very sharp and very bitter, and I was like, I don't know what the crack is here, like why does everybody like this drink? But it made me feel quite grown up, I think, as well. I think that's why I wanted to do it. It was like, oh, I had some alcohol.
I was going to ask that question, like, but you kind of answered it yourself there. It's like, why do you think you felt the need to want to have that drink, I guess, when you're that age?
Oh, because it was grown up. Yeah, I think it was like, oh, like I can do what the adults are doing. You always, obviously when you're a kid, you want to be more grown up than you are. You always stretch that extra half a year, don't you? I'm 6.5. You know, at 3/4. You know, it's like stuff like that, you know. So I think doing something that the grown-ups did was quite a thrill, you know. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
What about sort of fast forwarding then to your first experience with alcohol that you can remember, and you remember being sort of age and actually experiencing drinking for the first time, I guess, properly?
So when I drank for the first time properly, I think I was probably around 14 when I started to do the whole meet in a field, pass around a big 2-litre bottle of Strongbow or Magners or whatever you call them, Bulmers as it would have been back home in Dublin, and trying out different drinks as well. You know, some of my friends would, you know, have a Fanta bottle with spirits in it and, you know, kind of mix it up and stuff like that. So that would be my kind of earliest memory of properly drinking, like drinking to get drunk. Drinking because we're rebelling, you know, drinking so that like our parents don't find out, and you know, we will run off with all the boys that we fancy, kind of thing, you know, into the fields and stuff. So I was probably around 14, 15 when I was doing that kind of thing.
How did you feel that time? Obviously you said you drank for the first time when you was 8 and you had that feeling of like, not for me. How did you feel at sort of like 14, 15, that rebellion stage? What sort of feelings and thoughts did you have around drinking at that point?
I enjoyed it because it felt like you were doing something naughty that you shouldn't have been doing. You know, it's a rebellion thing, I think, for a lot of teenagers, probably not nowadays. I know that a lot of teenagers are not drinking that much anymore, but back in the day, in the 90s, that was a little bit of a rebellion thing. And like, you're always looking for thrills when you're a teenager as well. So I think that was just like an easy way of like, right, we're going to meet in, the bottom park, and then we're going to get like the 2 litre, right? Who's going to get that? And who should we ask to go into the shop? Because obviously they know our ages and stuff. It was all the kind of like, I guess it was quite ceremonial, if you want to call it that. And it was like, yeah, trying to figure out how we get it done, and then we get get 2 litre bottles, and then how many of there is, of us is there, and is there going to be enough to go around, and just enough to get drunk. We needed just that enough to get drunk. And I remember as well, like, oh gosh, we used to call it that the size of the vodka was like a naggin of vodka. I don't know if that's like just an Irish thing, or it could be a technical term for like the size of the bottle. But I remember like it's everybody got their orders in, and then we get someone who was like 18 plus to go in and get the stuff from the offo. But yeah, I think it just felt really rebellious, and that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, obviously, you say you grew up in Ireland, obviously grew up in England. I've got Irish heritage, which we've spoken a little bit about. And, that it's sort of like a rite of passage, isn't it? Within the UK culture, is like once you hit 14, or I think it's secondary school, you start to hang around with different people. You feel the need to rebel. How did your sort of drinking progress as you went through the years? And then obviously you get to the age where all of a sudden drinking's legal and there's no need to rebel anymore because you can kind of do it anyway. What was your relationship like with alcohol when you got to sort of 18, I guess?
Well, what I'll do is I'm going to tell you just the tiny chunk before then, because about that time, because I was doing the drinking in the park, and I went from there to going clubbing, but like being super passionate about house music at the time. And when I was into house music for a long time up until that point, probably up until I was 16 and then beyond. And what happened was when I went clubbing, it wasn't about alcohol at all. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't like alcohol, really. It was just the rebelliousness of doing it in the park. That's like the coming of age thing that you mentioned. But when it got to like 16 and I was able to go clubbing, I was able to get into clubs because I looked a little bit older, and I was hanging out with older people as well, like a couple of years older than me. I was, literally like, I'm just all about the music. And it was all about the music. And I'd maybe have a couple of Smirnoff Ices. I wasn't bothered. But what I was doing, at first I wasn't doing this because I was like, adrenaline is my drug. I don't need any drugs, And then I did end up getting into taking ecstasy when I was 16, 17, 18, around that time. And so I didn't really drink that much around that time. There was nothing about drink that pulled me in. I didn't really give me anything that I kind of wanted, but I did end up getting a little bit into ecstasy, and I was taking that with the music. By the way, anybody listening to this, I'm not condoning taking drugs. I'm just saying that this is what I did when I was a teenager. So yes, be safe always. But I wasn't bothered. And then when I did get to kind of 18, 19, I realized that going out partying, doing party drugs and things like that was really affecting my mental health. I was very anxious. I would be anxious for days after. Obviously, you're depleting, your happy neurochemicals. So like with the likes of ecstasy, you're going to get a big surge of serotonin through your body. And then what goes up must come down, right? So I was definitely on a come down for sometimes days afterwards. And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. So that's when it was around that time, me and my mum and my siblings were moving to England. And I thought, fresh start, I don't want to do this kind of going out clubbing, doing drugs anymore. That's not who I am anymore. It's not suiting me. So when I moved to England, that's when my drinking became party drinking. So yes, I moved to England in 2003. I was 19. And when I started to establish new friends via, the work that I got a job and everything, it was very much drinking culture. So I started to go out with people just to the pub after work, but like you would get leathered. I mean, it was just a thing, it would be like Friday night after work drinks, and then sometimes through the week a little bit as well. And that got me to kind of up into my kind of early 20s. And that's when I realized I sometimes had this thing in me where I just don't have an off switch. It's not every single time. I always liken it to rolling a dice and the 6 sides of a dice. If I roll a 1, it's game over. I'm not going home. I'm out. I don't want to go home. Everyone's like, oh my God, why can't you just go home like a normal person? And then all the other times I'm actually okay. You know, I decide to do the right thing and go home, and you know, enough's enough. You don't need to keep the night going and going. And I noticed this in me. I started to really observe it and go, oh, and I ended up at this like party with these people that I didn't know, you know, males and females, but still, you know, as a female on her own, not knowing a bunch of strangers when you're in your early 20s, especially, you know, it's, or not even especially, but just going off with strangers, you know, and you're drunk, you're vulnerable. And I really started to realize that maybe this whole drinking lark, I need to look at it, you know, and that kind of took me up to my mid-20s.
Yeah, I was going to say, because so it doesn't sound like with the drugs or the sort of ecstasy, it wasn't an escape, by the sounds of it for you. It was more just, was it like an enhancement of the environment that you was already in?
It was about the music. And when I tried it out for the first time, I did a tiny bit and it gave me this big thing. And I thought, oh, it all does go hand in hand. I can feel, you know, and all this kind of business. I can feel the music, even though I could without it. It just enhanced it more. Yeah, it wasn't about... It probably was about escapism as well, though, because with my life at the time when I was a teenager, for a certain period of time, my mum was a single mother and I had a lot of responsibility. I was babysitting a lot. I was looking after kids a lot. I'd had to do that, like, you know, through my childhood and teenagehood a lot. So actually for me, it was a bit of escapism as well. It was like, well, this is my time, even though I sounded like a mum, but I wasn't. But, you know, this is my time and it's all about the music that I'm passionate about, all about my friends and, you know, just having a great time and just throwing caution to the wind kind of thing. Yeah. So it was a little bit of escapism.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because other people's experiences, you can't help but try and relate them to your own, can you? And like, for me, drugs was such an escapism that I felt like if I didn't do them, I couldn't get out of my body and dance. I couldn't let it loose. But you also touched on, you know, you moved over to England. You found that you started to question your relationship with drinking. Was that a slow, gradual thing that happened over time?
Yeah, that was a slow thing until I got into a relationship that really highlighted to me actually what a problem my drinking could be. Not in terms of me being a problem drinker, like I'm drinking in the daytime and in the morning and stuff. More so the control that I lost over, or kind of the safety, the control over my own safety that I lost when I would drink. So I started seeing somebody, I was so sorry, I'm jumping around here in terms of where I lived. So when I moved to England, I lived in Leeds. That's where I lived for 20 years. I was so keen to move to London in 2008. So that was like 5 years after I moved over to Leeds. And I just started seeing someone just as I was moving down. But the wheels were in motion. I was still going to go. I'd only started dating them and stuff. But it was doing this long distance relationship with them that really made me realize that sometimes I would just go out, get absolutely leathered. We'd arrange to speak on the phone and I'd have intended completely to do that, a few after work drinks and then go ring my boyfriend at the time. And then I don't know what would happen. A switch would just go off in me where it's just like, I don't even have any concept that that person exists anymore. And that was a problem for me because although I was a youngster, I was 24, it doesn't really matter. I didn't want to be the type of person, because in my sober mindset, in just normal Danielle world, I was a very switched on, responsible person who stuck to their commitments and wanted to speak to him, you know, and didn't want to be throwing caution to the wind. But like I say, this switch in me would just happen. I'd have it'd be like the third glass of wine or something. I remember journaling on this when I was down here in London. I'm like, it's that third frickin' glass of wine. Can we swear?
Yeah, of course.
It's that third fucking glass. It's that third fucking glass of wine that is the tipping point for me. So maybe I need to stick to 2 glasses of wine now. A 24-year-old trying to do that in London when everyone's partying their arses off, going, come on, is so hard. But I did reflect on it. You know, I really was aware that I think this is really going to affect this potential relationship if this does turn into a relationship. And I don't want that. I think this thing has got legs, you know, and I want to give it my all. So There were a few occasions as well where we just had to talk, and he was just like, come on, Danielle, like something just happens with you, and I've seen it happen, and it's a switch and everything. And I'm like, yes, I've really thought about it, and I really want to do better, and I think I just had to really, it took a lot of time because it was such the norm. Going out drinking was the norm. So if I was to go against the grain, I just didn't know how to do that. So I was like, I guess I have the 2 glasses of wine, but I always felt like I was restricting myself and I didn't enjoy myself very much. And that was a good period of time of just sitting with it and learning and thinking, what am I going to do? I don't want to not drink, because that's like, who does that, So the concept of sobriety wasn't even a thing to me then. It was just like, well, I'm not an alcoholic. Like, why would I quit drinking? I just need to control this thing. God, it's just alcohol, I just need to control it. Easier said than done.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That's really interesting because I resonate massively with that kind of 2 drink thing. People would say my eyes would change. People would say they just saw this change in me. It was like the minute the alcohol hit my system, they could see like there was a joke like, fuck, we've lost Nick. Like, they had this thing where there was like, we've lost him, and there was no reasoning. It'd be interesting to understand, because a lot of people have asked as well about, there's the sober curiosity movement and like mindful drinking. You're obviously at a point now where you are sober. You've been sober for quite some time, but that period of self-awareness, and you said you journaled and you wrote about it. How does that look from that point to the point of getting sober? And was there a lot of trial and error? And how did that feel in your mind? Because you touched it there, like the possibility and the thought of not drinking was probably quite alien to you.
Yeah. I didn't associate who I was with not drinking, because I thought to have to take drinking out of the equation, that would have made me boring. And I had this whole misconception around it. I never would have judged anyone for not drinking, but for me, I thought, I'm not that person though, I'm the fun person, the party person, and I'm just not a non-drinker. So alcohol had to keep kind of hitting me in the face, going, I'm not working for you, mate. This is not working for you anymore. When are you going to realize it? And I was kind of cottoning on to the fact that, okay, I guess it's not working for me. And, I really have to restrict it if I'm going to make sure I never roll that one. And I kind of don't want to do this. And so it got to 2017, where I was like, I'm going to do something about it. And I don't quite know what it is. So then I just decided, look, 2018, I'm just going to do dry January, right? So I did dry January 2018, and I was like, felt amazing. Was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know that alcohol was actually affecting me, even though it was just like standard, your average person going to the pub and going out for meals kind of drinking, and sometimes like glass of wine at home, or 2 or 3 or 7, but it depends. It really depended.
Depends what number you rolled.
Yeah, exactly that dice. And I felt great, and then not started drinking, but like in February went out for a meal, and I was like, well, yeah, I'll be having wine, of course. And then we were in this restaurant, had a lovely time. The people in the restaurant just loved like our table, so they were like bringing us free shots and everything. But think about it, Nick, I hadn't drunk for a month. I had detoxed completely, and then I'm having my usual maybe half a bottle of wine, so like 3 kind of small glasses of wine, and then shots. And then I don't even remember getting home. Like, it was a blur. And I got home and obviously got myself into bed, but I woke up in the morning and I could smell sick. And I looked beside me and I'd been sick in my sleep. And that had never happened to me before. And that scared the shit out of me, because, as we know, plenty of people have comatose themselves with either drugs or alcohol, laid on their back, and because they're in that deep REM sleep, your body's basically paralyzed at that point. You haven't got the thing in you to get you up. You're literally unconscious, and you choke and you're sick and you can die. So it really scared me, and I thought, okay, look, this is just another sign. It's like I did the whole month. I felt amazing. I've done tiny little 2 weeks here and there before that without it. Felt good. Then I go and drink, and then this has happened, and I really fear now what could happen to me. It's not just now going off on nights out. I don't even do that anymore. I thought alcohol is just not working. So ended up doing 100 days. My intention was to not drink anymore. And I thought, I'll just not drink anymore. That's it. I just don't drink. Like, but what I did was I stayed at home. Friends were asking me if I was, no, I'm not going out. I don't drink. No. And now I know that was white knuckling it. That was just me sitting at home going, if I just stay away from everything, then I can protect my sobriety and all is well. Now, on one side of it, I felt amazing. I was, you know, fitter, more energy. I had a bit of like, you know, a few spots before that, like my skin had cleared up. I felt amazing, but I also felt a little bit miserable as well because I was restricting myself. I wasn't going out. I wasn't seeing friends. And, you know, someone did say to me, they're like, are you just going to be like this all the time? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do because if I go out, I know I'm going to end up drinking. So what I realized now is that I was white knuckling it. And if you white knuckle sobriety and your heart and soul is not in it and you're just living your life to the full and doing all the things that you want to do, including maybe going to the pub for 1 or 2 alcohol-free beers and enjoying it, then it's just not worth it because it's not going to last. So I did 100 days and I was really proud of that. And it was a barbecue invite that tipped me over the edge and everyone's like, you have to come to this barbecue. So I was like, yeah. And I'm like, of course I'm going to drink, you know. So I turned up with my crate of beer and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess, you know, 2018 was kind of the starting point. And then that led me into 2019 where I did another couple of sober stints. And then we go into kind of lockdown territory. Now, tell me if I'm going too fast on the journey.
No, it's perfect. It's really, it's interesting to hear because I think I have a lot of people who come on the podcast and they've got this stop dead date. And it's like a, you know, like a moment of madness and everyone's like, oh, I've had enough of this. But I think what you're saying, everybody actually experiences, but they don't realise they're experiencing it. And there's moments that happen in your life. And when you look back and reflect, you go, fucking hell, yeah, that was the point that I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. And I think you raised a really good point around the 100 days and white knuckling it. You can't get through this stuff on willpower alone. Like, no. You need some sort of some other purpose, some sort of program, something in place to, you know, protect your sobriety and learn how to live sober. But you're not going too fast at all. It's perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah. So then lockdown hit and I think I was about, what was I? I was into a sober stint and lockdown happened. Yeah. And it was just like, oh shit. And then, yeah, one day I found myself, and this is so bad, and I would never have usually done this. Not like, I mean, I really make this, I build this up a bit too much, I think. But I went to the shop one day and I got a bottle of wine. I was like, well, there's no fucker about. I can just drink this on the way home.
Yeah.
You know, like I started getting into the wine on the way home, and that was not good. I kind of like rose up out of myself and saw myself, and it was like, what are you doing? I know the streets are empty, Danielle, but it doesn't mean you walk around with a brown paper bag and a wine, you know? So so that really rang alarm bells for me. So then I went into another sober stint in April of 2020. And actually I was thriving indoors, not around people. So I was attending Morning Gloryville online raves. I don't know if you know Morning Gloryville.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay. They're like a sober conscious kind of movement, music, dance, community, all of that kind of thing. And they were running sober raves online. And honestly, people worldwide were on these raves. You would set your laptop up, get your camera on, get all spruced up, glitter on the face. But yeah, like it gets more elaborate as you go on. I think the first one I was only wearing trackies or something. I was like, oh, everyone looks so colourful. Like, and then my boyfriend at the time's mum, I got her in on it. And like, you know, sometimes you pop up on the screen when you're dancing and there's like a DJ and stuff. Loved it. And then it got to a point where it was like me and my ex at the time had gotten engaged. And you were allowed out then in the summer of 2020, and we were looking at wedding venues and to celebrate. I think I was like, oh, I'm gonna have a gin, I think. And he's like, yeah, like go. But you know, like I didn't say this one was forever, this sober stint, but then I just started to realize I even go to it when it's just like a celebration, or I was never really that much a depressive drinker. Like, oh, I'm down, I need a drink. Sometimes stress for sure, but it was like I had the gin and it was like, but that didn't actually make me feel any better. So why did I do that? Like, because I know that it numbs me. I know that much. I know what alcohol does to the body. It kind of anesthetizes you a little bit. So then it was just a bit of a learning curve in 2020. And then I did a lot of not sober stints, wet stints, I guess, where I was going out and, you know, making hay while the sun shone in lockdown. You know, when you were allowed out, you went out, and when you weren't, you didn't. And then going into 2021, I was like, I just want this sobriety. I want sobriety to stick. It needs to stick, because I know who I am without alcohol now, and I know who I am with it. And although I still love myself with alcohol, I am a dulled down version of myself. I'm not achieving all of the things I want to, or it's such slow progress, because you have a skinful at the weekend, and then by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, only then am I starting to feel like, yeah, I've got the thing in me that I want to do the things. Or I'm struggling through it and I don't want to. I know how I feel when I'm sober. When I do these big long stints, energy, motivation, and what I realized, Nick, was all of my neurochemicals were balancing out. So not, it's so funny. You think it's this magic pill and I'm like, I feel awesome. That's actually not awesome. We're so used to being below baseline that when we get to baseline, we're like, this is freaking amazing. And it's actually, mate, that's how our ancestors felt when they weren't all, you know, pumped full of alcohol or dopamine kind of inducing things, or, you know, things that are just like big hits of something. This is when you can get your neurochemicals balanced so as that you're getting dopamine from the right stuff, achieving your goals, doing something with your partner, you know, doing something at work and putting your whole effort into it because you have all the energy, you know, that's all your dopamine. And the serotonin, like feeling happier because, well, for one, your gut isn't being absolutely annihilated by an acidic poison, you know, that could be like, that's zapping out, you know, a lot of the good stuff in the microbiome. Like it's so inflammatory that, you know, I just think I dread to think what I did to my, because you know me, I'm a bit of a gut brain nerd, and I dread to think what I did to my little gut bugs, but and also what lives in there, which is your serotonin, your immunity. I used to get sick all the time. I would be borderline having a cold about 5 or 6 times a year, and I used to think, like, is there something wrong with me? I think my microbiome was so out of whack because I was pouring ethanol in there that it just didn't know what to do, and I would just be ill all the time. Anything that was going, I'd pick up. So I guess that takes us to 2021, and I was into a 40-day stint, which was going to be my forever. So it was June 2021, remember it clear as day. And then it was the day I was supposed to get married with my ex. And not that I was like really upset or anything, but we decided to go for a meal. We couldn't get married because we decided to postpone it to the next year because of COVID restrictions and family visiting from Ireland. So we were like, yeah, let's just postpone it. But we'll go out for a lovely meal. We'll go for a fine dining experience. You know, we used to like to do that every once in a while. Little did I know that was a big trigger for me. I didn't actually realize until I got there. And as soon as I got there, they're like, here's the tasting menu and here's the wine pairing list. And I was like, oh shit, I really want the wine. And I was like, what should I do, to my ex? And he was like, Danielle, you have to make that decision, but you've done really well, so just, you know, think about it. So I was like, okay, what do I do? So I sat on it for an hour and I tortured myself and I just cracked. I was like, oh, I'll just go for a really small glass of like very good wine. So I looked at the menu and I was like, I'll have a 175 of this. And as soon as I started sipping it, it went into my system and I started to feel super anxious. And I was like, oh shit, like my body does not want this. My body was thinking, yay, we're sober, like we finally got there. And then I'm there pouring this like thing that we don't want anymore, that was never agreeing with me. Like I was getting the most horrific hangovers. I was just feeling really low level anxiety quite a lot for no reason. Very low energy, just lethargic, like I told you, getting ill a lot. My body was rejecting it so badly. So as soon as I poured it in, it was going, oh no, the poison's in. And I started to feel really anxious and I thought, oh God, okay. And I finished that 175 and about an hour later, I was like, can I have another one, please? Because I was feeling too anxious and I was trying to level myself out. So I just ruined my whole experience there. Didn't need the wine, just my mind took over. But what I realized was, if I'm going to do this sobriety thing, it won't do to keep putting myself into environments where I'm feeling mega triggered. Like I likened my sobriety to a newborn baby, right? I'm going to have to take this little newborn baby that has absolutely no immunity and just keep it away from all the dangerous environments just for now, nurture it. Anything that's good for it can come in and help as well, but I need to nurture this little newborn thing of mine. So I just had to make my world revolve around sobriety for a while. I knew it wouldn't be forever. I didn't want sobriety to be my whole thing. You know, I'm Danielle, the sober person, but I had to do that because I realized I was just trying to segue it into my world and that wasn't working for me. I needed to make it all about sobriety. So I did. And that's when I started to get in contact with communities. Like, I know that we chatted earlier about Sober Butterfly Collective. That was the first sober meetup I ever went to. And actually, that was when I was in my 40-day stint, just before that moment where I had that glass of wine. But I knew what was available to me. And they were a collective of people who were ex-party animals or people like me, fun people, not boring people who are like, oh, I'm sober now and I'm a saint. It's like, I'm a wild child. Are there any people out there who don't drink who are wild children as well? And it turns out there were people like me who identified as not particularly alcoholic or anything like that. No shame on that label whatsoever. It just wasn't me. But people like me where it just wasn't serving me anymore. My whole body was actually physically rejecting it. So that was the last time I drank. It was the 21st of July 2020. No, sorry, the 24th of July 2021. That was 3.5 years ago now. And ever since then, I've been sober 3.5 years. Yeah.
That's amazing. Honestly, it's such a, I was going to ask, that journey that you went on is almost more of like a mindful thing. And you actually tuned into your body a little bit and you started to listen to your body. What do you think the difference was? You touched on community. What do you think the difference was with making your sobriety stick? Because a lot of people listen to this and they have that same experience of I've done 40 days or I've done 30 days. I feel amazing.
Yeah.
I'll just have one, and then they end up sort of back to exactly where they was. And what I found really interesting was you said that first drink gave you anxiety, when you was out, and the only way that your brain thought to deal with it was to have another drink.
Yep.
Which is kind of shows you the effect that alcohol can have in your brain. But what would you say is the difference between all the other attempts and then this time, and why do you think it stuck?
I think the journey to sobriety is going to sound very cliched, but the journey to sobriety includes drinking. Okay, so your sober journey will include drinking, weirdly. It's not about going, done with it, and that's it. Because people have done that. Some people have gone, I don't want to drink, and the next day they gave up drinking forever. I would say that's a very, very small minority of people who actually get and stay sober. Drinking is part of it because it's trial and error. Okay, so I went on that, let's call it a 3-year journey, right? From 2018 through to 2021. Because all of the things I did before that was just an awareness piece. It was like, that wasn't great. Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. And then, that was that. But from 2018 to 2021, my learnings were white knuckling didn't work. So I tried that. That's where you stay away from everyone and everything that is alcohol related. Then I tried to manage it and to go, right, I know. I can moderate. And you can. That's the thing. A lot of people can moderate. Is it fun? No, it's shit. You're sitting there and you have a glass of whatever your favorite tipple is and you go, I can only have one more. And because if I have any more than that, I know what happens. And then you have the second one and you go, I'm unfulfilled. And actually now, because I know I can't have the third one, I want the third one. So there's that. And then you learn, okay, maybe this kind of trying to control it is not actually going to suit me, because you just end up with these feelings of lack. And then what I realized the biggest thing that was missing for me was the meeting people who were like me, who were also sober. So sometimes I really feel for people who are very introverted in sobriety, because it's one thing going to a function that you don't know, where you don't know anybody, and having a drink as an introvert and then having that social lubricant. But if you're quite introverted and you don't have the social lubricant, it's really hard. So I know it can, I want to say to all the kind of introverts out there, because I identify as kind of ambivert. Sometimes I'm very introverted. I feel really super awkward in social situations sometimes, and sometimes I don't, it just depends. But I want to say to the people who feel a bit like, oh, going to new places and people, I just, try and find something that you love. So if it's like hiking or yoga, or I don't know, like music, something to do with music or gigging, or, even if it's something really quite antisocial, like going to the cinema, you don't have to talk to anybody, but like try and find something that you're interested in and find a group of people who are a sober community who do that type of thing, because then you're going to meet people like you, and then that's just a little bit of you will have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Everybody has to do that when they meet new people. But connection is the opposite of addiction. That Harry, what's his face quote, Harry, can't think of, Hari is the dude's name.
Yeah.
But connection is the opposite of addiction. You need to get connected, because that was the clincher for me, feeling like they're my people. I can still have my other people who drink and all that, and I'll be absolutely fine going out with them sometimes. But I need a group of people for me where I can message them and they get it. Or I can go meet them for a coffee, or we can go out together. And also, you want to go out and do the same things that you used to do with those people. So for instance, with Sober Butterfly Collective, we went on a massive night out one time. And when I say massive night out, we stayed out till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I wanted to do all of the things I used to do when I went on nights out, like dance on the tables in Mojos and Leeds. You were allowed, even when you fell. It was so bad. If you fell because you were drunk, they just wouldn't give a shit. But I kind of loved the raucousness of it. But, just doing stuff like that and just doing all the same things, thinking, okay, some of it was fun, some of it wasn't. Some of it you do have to be a bit drunk to go, actually, I really enjoyed that. But I think you need to get connected and still do the same things, but maybe in a safe environment at first. And then, find things that you enjoy that are nothing to do with alcohol. Oh, and use the new energy that you have to get up early in the mornings on a weekend and maybe go hiking or go for cold swims, or just do something a little bit out of the ordinary, but that's good for you. That's good for your mental and physical health. So I think they were the clinchers for me, the connection. Like, that's been the godsend. I have met some of my now dearest friends through the world of sobriety, and they are people who lived like me before as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to touch on that, because there is this element of the sobriety community, where if you haven't got this crazy story with drinking or using drugs, or going down this mad route of life, you don't necessarily connect with the other people that have had that story. And like you said, there's so many communities available now, and I think you hit the nail on the head, like find like-minded people. And I think also you touched on doing things that are not necessarily just sobriety related. You can find other things that are well outside of that realm that you can do. I mean, you've spoke to me offline a little bit about, like, you've reconnected with music through your sobriety, and you said something that people don't think's possible. You went on a night out totally sober, you dance with people, and what you realise is that it's the connection with those people in that moment that actually is why you like doing it, when you're off your nut. And then also you'll find out that if you go to those places and you don't like it anymore, that's fine also, and you can find other things.
Absolutely that. And it's really great that you say that, Nick, because what I realized with sobriety is, it's so funny, I'm sure this will resonate with you and the listeners. When you give up drinking, you realize how many environments you put yourself in that are just either boring, dull, I don't know, insert kind of inane word here. And actually you had to drink to get through it. So like the bloody, I don't know, the work things that you go to where like everyone's getting absolutely leathered. They seemed fun at the time, but if you go to one of those, and say if it's a set of people that you just don't really have much in common with or anything, you realize, oh shit, I used to drink to actually get through these situations. It wasn't that it was a good time. Or I don't know, going to weddings is a different experience now, because not that they're boring, it depends who it is, to be honest, but if it's like, close family member, you want to enjoy yourself and everything, but you realize that 12 hours of bloody drinking is not, it probably feels fun, but actually trying to do 12 hours of being in that environment where you're sober, you think, oh Jesus, no, 4 hours is enough of that, and then I want to go to my hotel room. So you realize how much alcohol like put a visor over you so that you could actually get through things, or made you think you were enjoying a situation when it's actually not that enjoyable, especially when other people get to the point of drunkenness where they're repeating themselves. Worse still, when their spittle lands on your mouth. I've had that. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going home. Your spit just landed on me. Because they're all drinking to be in environments that actually are not fun. So when you said there, going out and doing the things that you usually do and realizing, oh, actually, this is not actually that fun, you will realize what actually is fun, what's genuinely fun and great or engaging or fulfilling, and what's actually not.
Yeah, I think it's important, because people try to live the same life and then wonder why they're feeling unfulfilled. But what were some of the challenges that you faced in sort of early sobriety? I know you've touched on them a little bit already. And how did you overcome them? So, you spoke about really good analogy of holding a baby, like a brand new born baby. And I sort of believe that as well. I feel like you're kind of born again, or you either born again or you go back into the body that you was before you started drinking and using. So you go back to the age of, I don't know, for you, 14, before you had that period, you rediscover all these things that you loved about yourself. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them? So getting over those triggers and going into these environments.
So how did I overcome them? It was with experience that I overcame them, because obviously I had that big learning piece just before 2021. So when I got into the 2021, era of sobriety, I knew what my triggers were. I knew, even certain people I might not want to go out with for a while, because I knew there might be a bit of a very light peer pressure and stuff like that. So I guess boundaries were like my king, king and queen. I remember doing a little post on Instagram, because I set up a little sober account. Actually, that's another thing. I followed loads of sober accounts with a normal Instagram account. I was just following all these people, and I thought, I'm going to set one of those up because that will keep me accountable, and it was just this faceless account where I was putting my little day 1, day 7, double figures, all that, sharing my experience. And I remember putting up a post when I was a few months in saying boundaries is, boundaries. I thought I had great boundaries before. Now I know I didn't. Now my boundaries are king and queen. Like, they are in place. And if anyone tries to overstep it, I'm very aware of my boundaries. So I'll be very firm on no, and please respect my sobriety, actually, because this is very important to me. I'm not going to preach about it. I'm not going to tell you to go sober. But likewise, please don't tell me to drink, and don't try and coax me into, back into that lifestyle, because it's really not serving me. So boundaries was like so important. I had to make sure that I was very firm with them. Didn't have to do it often, but there was the odd person that I had to do that with. It was generally, I don't know, something about work, or maybe, like the odd friend of a friend who was a little bit naughty and trying to like lure you in, because like, you're so fun when you drink. And I'm like, I'm also so fun when I don't drink. I just don't want to go out at the moment until I'm not on my Bambi legs anymore, and I'm, really going with the sobriety thing. So yeah, and I guess what else was the question around triggers? Sorry.
Yeah,
Nick.
so just how did you overcome those challenges? So you said you set those boundaries in place. You obviously then took an opportunity to, protect yourself initially.
Yeah.
And you said practice was one of the things that, putting yourself in those environments.
Putting myself into the old environments with sober people, that was one of the it wasn't even a tactic, it was something I wanted to do, but it ended up being like, it was priming me to get back into environments like your big work nights out, person's birthday, whatever it might be, the big function. It was priming me for that, thinking, okay, I've done it now with my sober peeps. I know now I can go into that environment and I'm actually not going to be tempted. And then slowly but surely your mind, with your brain, as we know, there's neuroplasticity that goes on in your brain. And all that means is you've got neural pathways in your brain, and that's what always happens, right? Say you've got a neural pathway that's like, I go into a pub and I drink. That's a neural pathway, right? It's probably not as cut and dried as that. There's neuroscientists out there just going, Danielle, that's not how it works. But, basically to dumb it down, you can create new neural pathways by doing a different behavior in the same environment. Basically, what you're doing is you're tripping the switch, but you have to do it a few times. So I would say if you wanted to do that, like I did, you go to a pub, you have one alcohol-free beer, and you go home after half an hour or something like that. You're trying to train your brain, and then you do it again. You stay for an hour, and you have maybe 2 alcohol-free beers or a lemonade or whatever you want to have. And then before you know it, you're so used to going to the pub, and it might be the same pub as well, so that might help, that it's just second nature. You're like, Heineken Zero. You don't even think about, a wine or a this or a that. And you're training your brain. It's just another habit. You're just training your brain that in this situation, this is what we do. And then eventually it just becomes second nature, So you can do that in so many different environments. You've just got to expose yourself to them and overwrite the neural pathway that goes, a glass of wine though, because dopamine. It's like, no, we're going to actually get our dopamine in the morning when I've woken up going, I'm fresh. I don't have a hangover. I can meet all of my commitments today, or I can go on that lovely early morning hike, or I can meet my friend for a roast and feel good. And then you get your hit of dopamine.
Yeah, that's such great advice, to be honest. And I think understanding the science behind it will help a lot of people. When you've got that pathway to something that's so ingrained into your habits, your culture, whatever it is you want to call it, it feels impossible to break. But obviously there is science to back up that you can break these habits. You've also touched on how you wanted to get sober, but you wanted sobriety not to become everything, and you've obviously found your new purpose within your coaching and talking about wellness programs within the workplace. What's next for you now on your journey?
Oh, what's next? So, there's been a lot of change and transformation in my life recently. Recently left a 9-to-5 job, pursuing my coaching full time. Moved to Bristol because it's a place that it's always been close to my heart, and always said if I could, I would. So now I don't have to be commutable to certain places. I can be there. So what's next is I've got my own podcast, which you're on
yes.
as well, Tools for Tough Times. So it's speaking to on my podcast, speaking to people about
when you've got that pathway to something that's so ingrained into your habits, your culture, whatever it is you want to call it, it feels impossible to break. But obviously there is science to back up that you can break these habits.
On my podcast, speaking to people about navigating life's ups and downs and staying grounded and balanced in the process and the journey, and sharing our stories with others, just like this podcast, to help other people, to hopefully reach people where they're in similar situations and they're like, oh, that resonated. So there's the podcasting, and I guess what's next in terms of my own just personal journey, nothing to do with work or anything, is creative endeavors. And this is the great thing about sobriety, as you'll know, Nick. It gets you back in it frees up so much time, because you're not spending time being sick and tired, to think, what do I want to do with all this newfound time? And I'm actually learning how to DJ at the moment, not for any particular aim, just to teach myself. And I'm going to do a course shortly with a collective of people in Bristol. But it's just, for me, it's about, where can I bring the joy back in? Because it's all well and good of being sober. I can be a bit too all work and no play.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is I need to bring the joy back in, and bring back in my hobby. So last year I did a play, because I love a bit of Amdram. So I did a play. And then this year is all about music and teaching myself something I wanted to learn for a very long. I used to mix on 1210s, my uncle's 1210s, when I was a teenager, but learning how to do digital kind of mixing and also create electronic music as well. So that's what's going on for me kind of personally at the moment. I'm just still connecting with people, I'm meeting new people now in the new location I'm living in, and these are people who are coming from all walks. I feel like the universe is just putting people in my path who are just wonderful, conscious, lovely people, who a lot of them either don't drink very much or they don't drink at all. And that's great for me, because I love meeting other people who've gotten rid of alcohol because it wasn't serving them, and then they ended up doing this thing, you know, and that's what I'm meeting them at that part of their journey where they're doing this thing, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing some things too because of like giving up alcohol and, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's about creativity, joy, and just connection at the moment for me.
No, that's amazing. I think you hit the nail on the head as well. And once you open up your mind to, you know, allowing creativity to take over and play is so important. I don't think people often talk about how important it is to play. You know, like when you were younger, like I said, and you go back to that age, for me, some of the things I love doing now is all the stuff I used to do when I was younger, which is playing outside. You know, I'm in a forest for like 2 hours, just wandering around and just seeing like, wow, look at that leaf, like, you know, look at that tree, look at what I could actually go and just immerse myself in. And you forget that is an important part of the journey. And creativity as well, I think, is really important, because I think we're all born creative and we don't necessarily know it. And you know, there's a stereotype of, to be creative you have to be artistic, you have to be, there's so many different forms of creativity. And I think, you know, if you go into a normal 9-to-5 job and you can kind of feel the creativity getting sucked out of you. And when I got sober, it's definitely something that I noticed. Did you find something similar for yourself?
So, sorry, tell me the question again.
With your rediscovering your creativity?
Not at first, you know. I think my creativity was more Instagram. Like, I love everything you said there, by the way, like about nature. Oh my God, like we just need to be more so in nature, don't we? And you know, have these awe walks. So I think sobriety didn't bring out my creativity in the beginning, but what it did bring out for me was a thing that was already in me. I was already on a bit of a spiritual journey, trying to figure out, you know, the meaning of life. Why am I here? You know, all that kind of stuff. What that did for me was I felt that alcohol was lowering my vibration. And as we know, that is a creative, it can be a creative blocker. Some people can get really drunk and have great creativity, right? But that wasn't me. Okay. And it obviously wasn't you either. But I think it was a blocker for creativity, but it was also a spiritual blocker for me as well. And I used to feel a bit spiritually sick sometimes because I'd be doing all these social things and then dumbing all of my kind of vibration down. But it brought out my spirituality at first. So I started then connecting with people who are more on the spiritual side. So I think that happened first. And then a bit later down the line, because, you know, it's like you say, you lose the whole play thing. Like, as in, like, I can play. I think music and dance has always been my play, and I did have a bit of that in sobriety with going to sober raves or ecstatic dances, which is obviously conscious and sober, you know, kind of facilitated somatic practice. So there was a bit of creativity there, but in terms of me being the creator, that only kicked in, I would say, in 2022, end of 2022, and that's when I was like, oh, I need to bring back in, what did I used to love? And I was like, I used to love acting. Let's do some acting then. Didn't do that for a while. I was studying and working. I was like, I don't have the time. And then I ended up doing it. You know, I ended up being cast for a play. I got the lead role as well. The universe was like, you want to play? I'm going to give you a play. And I remember walking around this farm I was living on, learning all my lines all the time. I was like, you know, talking to myself. The cows were probably like, you know, weird. She's talking to herself again. But yeah, the music side of things, it's always just been there. It's been like dormant for so long, and I'm so passionate about it. Like, all of my friends know that, you know, I nerd out on music. Some people call me a music snob. I'm not snobby at all. I just know what I like. Like, I'm very, like, I know what I like. And we chatted earlier, didn't we? We were having a coffee earlier, and I told you all about my favourite band and where the history and Massive Attack this and Wild Bunch that and all that. You know, so I think I've been so passionate about it. It's like, why haven't you done this before? You know, and even someone said to me the other day, oh, you're learning to DJ. I thought you already were a DJ. And I was like, no. And they were like, oh, I just thought you were because you're so musical, you know, and you're so into it. So I think the creativity has slowly but surely come through because I've allowed myself, I've stopped doing the all work, no play thing and realised that I need play. And play is so important to just, doesn't matter if you're a drinker or a non-drinker, you have to have it because it's for your well-being.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think the spiritual side of thing as well, I've kind of gone the other way around. So I started off being really creative, and this being creative has allowed me to explore my spirituality. And, you know, you go through like your sort of, we spoke about Saturn returns and, you know, and slowly like waking up. It's weird, isn't it? You can feel these, I think people have this thought in their head about a spiritual awakening, which is this big moment, but I'd say that's a spiritual experience. I think a spiritual awakening is a slow, progressive thing that happens over time, and you're slowly becoming aware of a lot of things that are happening in your life. And you speak about the universe quite a lot. I know I'm a big believer in the universe drawing you to places and things. So it's really interesting. But we've been talking for almost an hour now, so I've got 2 last questions which I ask everyone. And the first question is, what is the single best thing that sobriety has brought you?
Friendship.
Wow.
Like really close friendships with some absolutely awesome people, and even just people I don't see very often, like friendships with people where I met with someone the other day I hadn't seen in a very, very long time, and this is actually Hannah from Sober Butterfly Collective. Hadn't seen her because I moved down south, and sometimes just time gets in the way and everything. But we saw each other the other day, first time in about 2 years or something like that, and it was like I saw her last week. So friendship and connection. I mean, I cannot wax lyrical more about the connections you will make if you just put yourself out there as a sober person.
Yeah, no, wicked. I think that's great. And the final question is, what is the one piece of advice that you wish you received on the beginning of your sobriety journey that you would give to somebody else at the beginning of theirs? It's a bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Wow. So I think just tell yourself you will definitely do this, right? Doesn't matter how long it takes. It could take 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, but you will definitely get there. If you really want to, you will. All you have to do is go on the journey and just know that there will be ups and downs. You will fall off the wagon many times probably, because many, many people do. Most people do. But every time you get back on that wagon is another time that you've committed to yourself. And again, when we're talking about training the body and the mind, you will train yourself to know the pitfalls, and we talked about it earlier, Nick, fail fast, right? It's this thing in construction, apparently. It's in IT. I come from a tech background. Failing fast is about doing something over and over again, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and you learn from it. So actually I call it learn fast. So what you're doing every time you fall off that wagon, you're not failing at all. You are learning. You're going, right, that didn't work. Oh gosh, that's a trigger. Oh God, I didn't even know that was a trigger, and just keep on it. You will definitely get there. I guarantee you, if you just keep getting back on the wagon.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think, it's seeing stuff like that as a learning rather than a failing is also great advice. And thank you for being so open and honest. And it was a really interesting episode because I've not had someone on the podcast for a while from that angle of sobriety, and you brought some science to it as well, which I'm sure the listeners are really going to appreciate. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Sorted. All done.